I can think back to several times in my career where sometimes because I wasn't the person who had the most experience, I did have to take a beat and pause and listen and learn. Not only are you dealing with the day-to-day operational legal work of keeping the business going, generating money, being profitable, again, in a very dynamic environment and business market. It feels like you're in your own reality TV show. But these are not episodes, it's your real life. And yes, the stakes are high, but it's what keeps the work interesting.
Welcome to Between the Briefs, a podcast by Steno. We're here to bring you practical tips, expert insights, and real conversations about the pretrial process, court reporting, and the legal technology shaping the future of litigation. I'm your host, Adrian.
And I'm your host, Joe Stevens. Whether you're an attorney, paralegal, or just curious about how technology is changing the legal industry, we've got something for you. Each episode will break down complex topics, share behind-the-scenes intel, and talk to the people leading innovation in and out of the courtroom. So grab a coffee and let's get into what's happening between the briefs.
Hello and welcome to Between the Briefs, brought to you by Steno. We're your hosts. My name is Adrian.
And I'm your co-host, Joe Stevens.
In this episode, we're thrilled to welcome Asari Aniagolu. Asari has built an impressive career navigating complex international business operations, corporate contracts, and compliance. With her extensive experience in corporate law, Asari has become a trusted leader in the legal field, supporting businesses across the globe.
And as a legal expert with a focus on international law and a passion for pro bono work, Asari has also played a significant role in advocating for vulnerable populations. Her career journey is an inspiring example of leadership and dedication to both corporate success and community impact.
Welcome to the show. It's great to have you here with us today. How are you?
I'm doing well. Very excited to speak with both of you.
Same. I'm really excited to have you on the podcast. Now, tell us a little bit more about your background. Where did it all begin for you?
Sure. So I'm originally from the Midwest, the heartland of America, if you will. I am first generation American. My father's Nigerian. My mom's from the Caribbean. And that has really shaped a lot for me, especially my interest in international law.
That's amazing. What half Caribbean are you? Just out of curiosity.
Oh, yeah, of course. My mom is originally from St. Kitts, Nevis, and grew up in the U.S. Virgin Islands.
Amazing. I got a chance to go to St. Kitts recently.
Wonderful. Yes, it's a small island, but beautiful in all
Very
ways.
beautiful. So right, let's just hop into the legal side. So you mentioned that you got a passion for law, and what made you kind of gear that towards international law and business? Because I feel like it, in a way, is kind of a niche of law itself.
Certainly. So why I say it started with my family is because my grandfather on my dad's side was a lawyer in Nigeria and became a Supreme Court judge in Nigeria as well. And he actually helped rewrite the Constitution. So the second edition of the Nigerian Constitution, my grandfather, Justice Aniagolu, helped write it. So that obviously has been very important to me and really sort of shaped my career and passions in the law. I was sort of, when I'd visit, I would follow him around and ask him all sorts of questions. And thankfully, he was a very loving grandfather and would answer all of them. Fast forward to law school, I actually remember walking through the stacks in the library and saw the binding of a book with my last name on it. And I was like, wait, I didn't write anything. Not yet, at least. And it was actually my grandfather's book talking about different constitutional properties. And from that point on, I really was focused on not only making an impact with my career, but hopefully doing it on an international level. That passion followed me throughout law school. A lot of the classes that I took outside of foundational classes, obviously, focused on international arbitration, international dispute resolution, litigation. Some of the greats, truly, like some amazing professors, really helped ground my thought process on international law. And from there, I went to law firm. And Of course, you have your initial typical law firm experience. I did work at great firms though that I'm so thankful for the training that they provided me and the opportunities. Um, and it was, I guess I didn't know enough to say no to certain things, so I just said yes. And that meant working on litigations domestically initially, and that blossoming to international arbitrations and investigations. And with this circuitous route, you'll see that investigations turned me to looking at companies' compliance teams and not wanting clients to come to me when there are issues, but maybe be proactive and actually be fixing those problems or mitigating those issues before they turn into a full-scale problem. Hence, now my role at my company working on international corporate business transactions.
Asari, you mentioned a couple of things. My family's Australian, and none of I was the first to get a graduate degree in my family. I've practiced as an attorney too. I'm curious on your end. I mean, what does it mean to you to be a first generation practitioner, lawyer? And I would love to sort of pair your answer there with like, what did it feel like when you saw your grandfather's book? I mean, did that shape the idea about your legacy, or what, or the legacy that you want to leave, or the privilege that you have with the degree that you have? How do all of those things fuse?
Sure, certainly. So like I said, my grandfather had a big impact on me. So I am the first grandchild, first granddaughter on my father's side. So those are shoes that I doubt I'll ever be able to fill, right? Like, I don't know if we're gonna have any new country soon and you're helping write their constitution. Um, but it did quickly impart on me on how impactful you could be with your career and truthfully the significance of being an attorney. So yes, it is very important to me, and I hold this profession up to the highest um, standard for my fellow attorneys and also for myself with our judgment and everyday decisions, and of course the bet the business kind of decisions as well. So it is something that has shaped me over and over again. I mean, sadly, my grandfather passed my first year of practice, but I was happy that um, he didn't get to see me walk across the stage because he was sick at the time, but he did know that I became a lawyer. I told him I was sworn in. He was very happy that I started out in litigation. Um, and there are times where I think, what would grandpa do in certain situations? Because he had such a strong moral fiber. Um, and it was important to him, not just in being an attorney and judge, but being a father, an uncle, a man of his community and of his faith. So it's something that has really, really stuck with me.
It's fascinating. To be also in the court of the highest part of the land is just
Yes.
very
Amazing.
impressive. So, tell me, what are your ambitions now? Because you're working on massive projects, right? With some firms that have, it seems honestly like they have their hands in a lot of different industries as they grow. And where do you see the next steps for your career? Do you want to continue down this path?
I do. I like this path that I'm on. I really do feel like I have this unique skill set, if you will, of having worked in dispute resolution as a litigator and arbitrator, and then with arbitrations, and then also working on the transactional end. I mean, I think I could shepherd clients through the entire life cycles of their businesses at this point. Um, but even outside of that, given the different industries that I have helped clients in, financial industry, real estate, aerospace, defense, you name it, even fashion at one point. Um, I do think that as lawyers, we have this really unique role. And that's not to be grandiose or anything like that. It people come to us not only for, of course, our legal skills, but our judgment and our ability to have foresight. And I really do think that for me, that means that I want to continue to have, but capitalize on having a career that makes an impact and helps shape some of the businesses that shape our nation, our world. So, being in the defense industry, being with corporations, not only are you helping that corporation sail through its own life cycle, so the company being successful impacts people, the employees, the stock price, all of that. But if you're in these major industries, you may be actually having a finger on the pulse of history and how you handle, say, for instance, an uncertain legal market or uncertain geopolitical issues, how your company handles it, how you handle each transaction matters. And I think that is something that is exceptionally important to me.
You mentioned the things that are valuable, the sort of traits that are valuable in attorneys. I would like to press on that a little bit more. You're outside of your legal acumen, right? The things that people come to you for are exactly what you just said: judgment, strategy, the way that your mind. What are some of those other skills that you think really do actually matter too, that are sort of external to what you're taught in law school or that you can learn in a classroom?
Definitely. I think like all the skills you mentioned, of course, but I think one of the biggest skills is listening, like truly listening to what your clients need, the trends of the markets that you're in, and sometimes also listening to what, if you're in a adversarial position, what the other side needs too, because that ushers you to different solutions that you might not have thought about initially. I can think back to several times in my career where sometimes because I wasn't the person who had the most experience, I did have to take a beat and pause and listen and learn. And a lot of times you find out, okay, I can see where the other side is coming from. They might be incorrect on what the outcome should be, but they're not just being motivated by money. When this transaction broke down, that also impacted their reputation. So if there's a way that we can help them build back their reputation, maybe this case can settle. Maybe we can knock out some of the issues that don't really matter and just focus on what does. And I think that kind of well-rounded 360 view of what solutions can be makes you the best advocate. My clients know when I was a litigator or now working in an in-house, that if I say, yes, I think we have to either complain about this, bring this to a dispute, I have thought about all different types of solutions, either mediation, conciliation, arbitration, litigation. Let's try to amend the contract, all of that. So if we're going to litigation, we are going full throttle. And it's because I wholly believe in our positions, and they know that I'm going to be no holds barred, full court press, all of the various terms that you use to say that you're all in. But yes, I think the skill set that has helped me the most, and the one that I continue working on, is listening. And then being able to really bring in the different interests into the solution.
I would love to know what your mindset is like, or any maybe what you would advice you would give to someone going into high stakes litigation. Because I feel like when you work for a defense firm, and you mentioned, you're working in areas that can be very sensitive, and also the stakes can be very high. So I feel every decision you make matters. So how do you keep your cool and are able to think things through very effectively when there could be a lot of pressure being applied?
I think so much comes from preparation and what you put into your preparation. And what I mean by that, it's yes, of course, maybe going through your argument, going through your negotiation position, but there's a reason why there's a dispute, right? Intelligent people from either side of either the negotiating table or either side of a dispute are disagreeing about something. So it's not that clear cut often. Sometimes, yes, you'll get summary judgment, motion to dismiss. Those are fun, but rarely is it that clear cut. So because intelligent people are disagreeing, I think in your preparation, you have to be very honest about the gaps that your negotiating side or position might have. There are always gaps. Nothing's perfect. Either the facts don't work in your favor, or maybe due to some kind of new law, something happened delayed on your end. There is something that might be imperfect. Coming from that position, you then strengthen it. And I think that is the best way, is seeing, okay, yes, I know my position well. Again, that you have to start from that foundation, that you know the law and you know the facts cold. Then you can come from the other side and figure out, well, why are we arguing about this? What's the gap? How do I fill in the gaps with either the laws or the facts? And that is the best way to prepare yourself for something high stakes. And then also know that these situations involve people. There's something's going to go that wrong, quote unquote, or not the way that you planned. But because you're so prepared, that should not throw you off your game. Like you almost are prepared for something to go awry, if you will. And I feel like any person who's been in the law has at least, I was going to say a few stories, but it's more like several stories where something happened, your client was late, the judge was having a bad day, some breaking news happens that drastically changes your negotiating position, and there you are walking into the boardroom. We've all had it, and you really have to think like, I'm dealing with human beings. I'm dealing with a dynamic environment. Something will come up. Do I at least have my grounding on my facts and the law, and just try to press through?
How do you deal with the situation where you've done all of that work? Okay. You've sized everything up. You're winning on the preparation front, but you have a client that doesn't understand why you've made a decision that you've made based on everything, all the input that everything that you've sized up. They still don't understand why the thing that they want to have happen can't happen, or the outcome that they think is ideal is not the one that is most likely to take place. How do you navigate that client relationship?
Those are the clients that you remember and love, though, because they make you a better attorney. And why I say that is because this is gonna, I guess, maybe become a theme of what I say, but because it goes back to listening. Why? And there's sometimes clients, and I had to learn this, obviously, but I'll ask them, okay, what's bothering you? What do you feel like I'm overlooking? Like outside, and often it really doesn't have to do with the law. It is because they want they want a certain outcome, but it's because, for instance, this is my family company and I'm worried that I'm just going to completely lose the entire company and disappoint my parent. That's all. Those kind of very visceral and deeply felt sentiments about something only come through when you let them know, yes, I'm open to feedback, respectful feedback, obviously, but feedback. Outside of the law, outside of the bravado that sometimes happens in our profession, what can I do for you as my client to get what you want, but also feel like you have been advocated for in this process? Because that's so much of what it is to be an advocate too, is to make sure that your client feels the best that they can about the outcome. Now, it might not mean that they expected $100 million. They got 90. Okay. I would still say, yes, you won, you got 90. 90% tends to be an A at many schools. Bravo. But I think having had some of those conversations with clients and they recognize that, like, we are in this together. I want to win just as much as you do. I love winning. It's wonderful. But tell me what I can do for this process to feel like you have been seen and heard and truly championed. And I think often that, like, at least brings the emotional stakes down for them, because they know that, yes, this person is on my side. That's why I hired them. They're amazing at what they do. Let me tell them why it's not working for me right now. And then we go from there.
You're currently in-house counsel, correct? So you work with a lot of international business law. Has there ever been a time where you found a discrepancy in the way things are interpreted internationally, and like how do you get over that chain of communication?
Oh, certainly. It can be very interesting, especially where we are now in the legal field as we incorporate more and more AI. Um, and that for some jurisdictions is butting up directly against either privacy laws, different employment laws, etc. So yes, you definitely have these tensions, if you will. Um, and you have a lot of companies that are maybe in defense or the tech space that their business is moving at the speed of light and the law is trying to catch up. So that being said, I think often what I try to do is speak to the business people and let them know, like, again, about listening and trusting me with what is our end game? What do you want to get to? And then from there, I can say, okay, this is where the law takes us. And sometimes it takes us all the way there. Perfect. Sometimes it doesn't. And then I speak with them to figure out what is, of course, the compliant way to do something. And if there is no law on that, okay, this is our legal grounding to try to take that leap forward. And that tends to get us past any kind of discrepancies or tensions. Sometimes there is no law on that yet. So we try to find maybe a corollary and a different area of law. I work with a number of local, like trusted counsel in various jurisdictions, and they are also the best of the best of what they do. Sometimes they reach out to their legislatures on a no-name basis and ask some questions. That is helpful too. But ultimately, the decision is with me and my internal clients. And I think, I hope, and I really work towards them trusting me um, because we all want the same thing, a healthy and profitable company. And from there, again, that's where we continue to work together. I just ask them to include me in that process as soon as possible, rather than waiting to the 11th hour and I have to say no on something when I prefer to say yes after we do XYZ steps, or yes, but yes, and I don't want to have to say no. I want us to get to that end goal.
Asari, how do you inherently, when you're dealing with international clients, international issues, there are a ton of external forces at play too. So when you think, for example, about navigating national security interests, when you're talking about just the different personalities, when you're talking about things that again aren't necessarily they need to be considered, I suppose, or if they're factors in how you go about the work that you do. But is that exciting to you? Is that complicated to you? Is that frustrating to you?
It's extremely exciting to me. It feels like you're in your own reality TV show,
Mhm.
but these are not episodes, it's your real life. And yes, the stakes are high, but it's what keeps the work interesting, dealing with the different personalities, the different jurisdictions, the different programs. It's never dull or boring. I really appreciate the variety that I deal with every day in my practice. And it's part of why I really enjoy being an attorney. You can always learn something new. There's always something new to figure out. And of course, you're going to get asked the question that you have no clue about, but you do know how to figure out the answer. You might not know the answer yet, but you understand a process to get to that answer. And I think that goes back to the trust that your internal or external clients, if you're outside counsel, have with you and have about your judgment. So overall, I like it. It's a little bit of the, I guess, the excitement, the drama, if you will, without being dramatic. Um, and it keeps it all very interesting. I can really see how some of my more seasoned colleagues have been practicing for multiple decades. I hope to do the same.
Well, so just to let me force you to be glass half empty for a second.
Okay.
What is the other side to that coin? I mean, what is the biggest frustration or sort of obstacle or roadblock or challenge that you have in the role that you have? And is it navigable and in a way that is like, are you constantly making, is this something you're just going to have to deal with for the duration of your career, or are they sort of just moment by moment things that pop up from time to time?
Sure. I think, okay, well, to answer your first question about what's your biggest challenge, um, as in-house counsel, I think the biggest challenge is balancing speed and caution, right? You not only are you dealing with the day-to-day operational legal work of keeping the business going, generating money, being profitable, again, in a very dynamic environment and business market, but then you do have those things that pop up. Maybe the unforeseen litigation or an internal investigation here or there. And you still have to work at the speed of business, keeping everything moving while having that focus on those one-offs. So it's really trying to balance like, okay, how quickly can I get through reviewing this contract, but how thorough do I also need to be so I can review it just once, it's signed off on, and you proceed forward. So I think that for me is the biggest challenge. And of course, as you start to learn your client or the business you're working with internally, you understand it's like it's not life cycle, but like it's annual cycle, I would say, or quarterly cycle or weekly cycle that you're like, okay, I understand it's coming towards the end of the year. We're going to have a lot more financial filings to do. Let me start to think about those come October as opposed to waiting to December. Um, and I also, like my colleagues, many of them have worked in the industry for a very long time. And we also start to, certain things can we make usable templates? Um, can we start to have these repeat processes? And truthfully, use some digital tools that can help us. Now, I wouldn't go to the extent of saying AI per se. I wouldn't necessarily say AI in the way that many people colloquially think of AI. No, because a lot of what we're working on is confidential and proprietary, etc., and needs human judgment to complete the thought process. But there are things that you can do in a quicker fashion with a document management system or like a system that allows you to track a workflow so you're not sending emails back and forth late at night. You can just check it. Oh, it's with my colleague. They tend to take about, I don't know, half a day to get through these things. Okay, I'll check back with them at the end of the day. Things like that to really help the process and help the process of everybody around, not just the country, but the world, because you have different time zones and holiday schedules, etc., really be able to work on a particular contract or agreement at the same time.
You mentioned not using AI for good reason, compliance and making sure data security, everything is confidential in the way that it should be. Do you think this kind of prevents people in, or really attorneys in these similar positions from being more efficient lawyers? Dare I say effective sometimes, because you could be quicker at creating a summary or a deposition. You can analyze it. So would love your thoughts on that.
I don't want it to seem as if I'm saying no to AI because I don't think that's true at all. I don't think that's even necessary to say. I think AI would be a tool just like your laptop is, just like your phone is, all of that. Your phone, yes, it's like a little computer in your pocket, but it still needs the human judgment to put in the input, to synthesize what you get back, and to utilize that. Same way with your laptop. I think it's the same way with AI. And I think that's the right way for it to be used to enable human attorneys to do things more quickly and be more thorough. So if I have many, say for instance, I have many contracts to review, but they're all in the same format or template coming from the government, yes, me going through them one by one is going to take a longer time. But if I know there's 50 and they all are in that format, I am aware that there's certain AI capabilities that can be made within a company's own in-house structure rather than it being a part, I guess, of like the open sources that you would find on, your everyday internet. And that's something that can be quickly look through, synthesize, and say, okay, out of these 50 contracts, here is the relevant information alphabetized. That made the person's life easier. And yes, that attorney still needs to go back in there and say, okay, we only need the ones that are from only these 20. This one is most comparable to our situation. And then go from there using your judgment, using your advocacy skills. That it's a tool in my mind. I don't think that it is helpful for the legal world to be so afraid of AI or other digital tools because they really are just here to assist us when used correctly. Of course, we need to have regulations around them and different rules, if you will, but I think it's more help than harm. It makes me think of a time when discovery went from, I guess, what you would find paper to then e-discovery. And at that time, I was a pretty junior associate, and I was like, okay, yeah, emails, text messages, sounds good. Like, we just look at them and process them through the same way that you would a letter. And it was a big adjustment for many people because it was new. But as we see, we've all adapted. And now emails are the first things that many attorneys look through. Emails are the first thing that you're like, oh, okay, perfect. Put it into relativity, load it up. People are talking about metadata and all these things. And that's just been in the span of 15 years or so. So I think it's AI and continued technological advancements will continue to help the legal field rather than hurt us.
When you and I, it sounds like we're sort of entering the legal practice around the same time, and therefore went through law school at a time when it was obviously digital in a lot of ways, but we didn't have AI at our disposal. And I think that forces the development of a different skill set.
Agree.
I see it in the students that I teach now. They're incredibly whip smart in some areas and their tech capabilities are incredible. And then you're left with a whole set of, underdeveloped skills, which is maybe the opposite of the skills that we were developing when we were in law school. Do you see that as well with younger practitioners? Do you see the benefit to AI, obviously, in your practice, but then see, younger practitioners or who have not developed the same sort of skills that you were developing in law school?
I think this is an interesting question, especially for someone who I think people would consider me mid-career. I don't know. Um, I'm not sure, but I do think, well, I say it's interesting because you see it sort of on both ends. I feel my generation, if you will, is like the bridge between some of our older, more seasoned colleagues and then some of our colleagues who are just starting out in the profession. And I like being that bridge, right? I think it's helpful and I think it adds continuity to the profession. It really is difficult for me to say that I'm seeing underdeveloped skills. I just think that it's best to have a team that has people from all levels of the profession, if you will, that kind of holistic type of team. I know a lot of my older colleagues give that level of gravitas and shorthand that clients need, internal clients and outside clients would need to know that they are being taken care of. It might be that extra call or that extra email that really preserves client relationships. And then my colleagues who are more junior, sometimes in age, sometimes in experience, They, like you said, are whip smart. They they do look at things very efficiently, and of course clients like that too. That reduces bills and turnaround time. And then I think the value of that kind of middle of the sandwich, if you will, um, folks around our age and generation is having both of those skills, but then also really having this deep kind of cross generational sensitivity, if you will, and getting into thinking about the law and the strategy of it. Because I think, yes, we understand the facts of a case and we probably can synthesize through them quickly, sometimes thanks to that more junior person. And then you're not so far removed that as that more senior person, so you can really start to think about, okay, what's our next step? What's our strategy? How do we incorporate this into a longer term kind of projection towards the goal? So I think that's the main thing is really having teams that, and I'm going to use this word, diverse in experience, and diverse in skill sets that they bring to a particular situation.
Asari, I would love to ask you about your pro bono work. I know that you work very hard in it, and I would love the audiences to get a larger picture of what it is that you've done. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Oh, certainly. Um, so it was very important to me to work at firms earlier in my career where pro bono was important and pro bono was valued in the same way that I guess paid legal work would be. And I think a lot of times it goes hand in hand. So you do have some of your premium clients that pay millions for different types of legal work. And then that also allows firms to do substantively valuable work, but maybe for less vulnerable populations. So I definitely think it's all part of like an ecosystem that happens. And as a junior attorney, I had amazing opportunities because of my pro bono work. So I worked on an immigration asylum case that really made me have to dig into immigration law, but also advocacy very early on. Going to different types of courts. How do you deal with a client who's been through trauma? And ultimately, that client being awarded asylum and really feeling that elation that with the client in the same way. I've I've dealt with pro bono cases, some student athletes as well. As I said, I had worked on some fashion matters at time, dealing with some like employment matters for some of the younger models in particular industries, and sadly dealing with certain things with alleged maybe trafficking and being that voice for them, but also being, again, that listening, empathetic ear to make sure that your advocacy is helping them, but not re traumatizing them in the same time, because they are people who are trying to get justice, but also move on with their lives in the same way. So now that I'm in house, I think some of my pro bono work has turned into volunteer work as well. So, again, it's important to me. So I like to work at companies that allow and value volunteer work. And my current company does. We do a lot of different, if it's, you can do legal counseling, but then there's a lot of mentorship for different students coming up through STEM, different STEM programs, high school, college, law school. There's a big focus on that. And for me personally, I know because of the pro bono work that I've done, I like to focus on vulnerable populations like children and women of lesser economic means. So that has been important to me. And given my in-house role, I can also have the time and wherewithal to be involved in different boards too. So that has been something that has been also fulfilling for me. in this kind of different phase as an in-house attorney.
Nice. Well, we always ask this question towards the end of our conversation, and that is, what is your hottest take on the industry right now?
Hottest take. Okay. Wow. There's some that are like piping hot, but I would say, I mean, I think it goes back to what we talked a little bit regarding AI. So I do think it's something that we should embrace as a tool for ourselves as opposed to a hindrance. We're not in competition with AI because I don't think we really truly can be. We're human beings, hopefully with great intellect, and there's a reason why we're in this profession. So we shouldn't discount ourselves. We should just see the way that AI can be helpful and utilize it that way. And that means sometimes learning something new. So being open to learning something new. I think, so yes, using AI as a tool, coupled with the fact that it is an uncertain geopolitical market, that's just another tool in our arsenal. Not wherever you might be on the political spectrum, it's still such a significant and impactful profession that we're in. So like, I think my main thing is don't discount yourself. We are lawyers for a reason. People look to us for a reason. So let us sort of embrace the tools that can be helpful to us. And that just makes for a more robust profession going forward.
Great take. And I know Joe couldn't agree more on that one.
100%. I'm right on board with you there, Asari, for sure.
I want to give you a huge thank you for coming on the podcast, and a big thank you to our audience for tuning into Between the Briefs, brought to you by Steno. Special thanks again to our guest, Asari Aniagolu, for sharing her invaluable insights on international business operations, corporate law, and her dedication to leadership and pro bono work. And of course, a big thank you to my co-host, Joe Stevens, for another fantastic conversation.
Right back at you, Adrian. And be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And stay tuned for more thought-provoking discussions at the intersection of law, technology, and innovation. We'll see you next time.
Up next on Between the Briefs.
The practice of law is the paradigm information work. Just talking about things and facts, and you go and you push a paper somewhere and something happens, or we can guide people toward principles and systems and ways of thinking about adoption based on strategy, first and foremost. Is this delivering value to the client? In some ways, that's the only metric that matters.
Stay tuned for the full interview coming to you soon. Between the Briefs is brought to you by Steno. To find out more about Steno and how we combine exceptional court reporting and litigation support services to deliver a superior litigation experience, visit steno.com. That's STENO.com. And then make sure to search for Between the Briefs in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else you get your podcasts, and click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at Steno, thanks for listening.